Hey there, I'm Adam.
And I'm Steven.
It's Thursday night, Steven.
It is Thursday night. Football is in 2 hours.
2 hours, and we are going to be talking about some daily fantasy football. We're going to be talking about that because last year, Steven and I actually accumulated $81,000 in winnings over the football season.
Yeah, and we did it with less than $25 a person going in to start the year.
That's right. And so even once we won, we invested a total of less than $500 each. And so I'm really into ROI. Do you feel good about ROI?
I love some ROI. In fact,
big fan.
I think it might be the most important thing when we're talking about daily fantasy sports.
I think you could argue that. I think you could argue that.
Yeah.
So we just want to talk about this. We love single game lineups. Lots of people you're going to hear in these types of videos are going to be talking about league-wide lineups where you're deciding between players from all sorts of different games. We like the more contained single game lineups. You got 4 flex spots. You've got an MVP. His points are worth 1.5 times, and then we just feel like we've really come up with a pretty good system to break these games down. How would you describe our system?
Yeah, we've got a really unique process. We just love to sit down. We start talking through the game a little bit, and we come together with something we call a game flow.
I've heard people say game script. How do you feel about that?
I don't like that.
It's not a script.
No, we're way more original. We call it the game flow. You won't hear that anywhere else.
That's trademark us,
that's
2019.
Us. That's right. We like to talk through and figure out how do we think this game's going to go. And then as we come up with a game flow, that allows us to then know which players to target. And sometimes by doing that, we end up with some really contrarian plays, but not because we're just trying to throw a no-name player in to be contrarian, but because a player that maybe is lesser known falls right within our game flow.
Yep, and that's really given us some great success.
Gives us a lot of variance, and we end up with players that are oftentimes owned with a lot less percentage, I would think.
Absolutely. So let's get into tonight. Okay, so we got Bucks and Panthers tonight.
A game that I would not be excited about if it was not daily fantasy football.
It is ridiculous because I watched the Buccaneers last week, and I hated football for 2.5 hours. It was ridiculous.
It was bad.
Jameis Winston threw the rarely seen pick 12. That's 2 pick sixes. And then Garoppolo threw a pick 6. So between them, that's a pick 18.
Yeah, that's true.
Unbelievable.
It was more points scored defensively.
It was ridiculous.
Now, that being said, there was also, I think, 5 touchdowns called back in that game.
We both had Kittle, and he had 2 taken back, and that just murdered us.
When you're watching for the sake of daily fantasy sports and your players keep getting touchdowns taken back,
it's not great.
It's a rough night.
Not great. So tonight, I think, let's just try to talk through our game flow a little bit for tonight. I think a little bit more than you do. I think this game's a blowout. I was convinced by how bad the Bucs were in that game. And the Panthers didn't look amazing, but they actually stayed within 3 of the Rams in the end on the road. I could see this game. I can see the game flow where this is a 30-13 type victory for the Panthers, and by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, it's over. And if that's the case, I'm going to definitely want to be going heavy Panthers players and then looking for maybe some backups who are going to be getting some time in the late third, early fourth quarter.
So in that game flow, what player are you targeting the most? Who do you think is going to be your MVP?
But we have to talk about McCaffrey. You cannot talk about the game without talking about McCaffrey. So he had 29 touches last week for about 240 yards and 2 touchdowns, 37.9 fantasy points on FanDuel.
If I'm not mistaken, he was in the game for every single play.
67 snaps.
67 snaps.
His backups did not get a snap.
They didn't just not touch the ball. They didn't get a snap.
So
I think other than special teams.
It's obvious. McCaffrey is the obvious MVP play here.
He's going to have 80% plus ownership.
We each have 3 lineups. He's going to be the MVP in 2 of them. You just can't get around it. A bad game for him is going to be 17, 18 points possibly. And so even if he has a bad game, who's the person who's going to come up? So we do have 1 lineup each.
Well, I'm going with a slightly different game flow. I like that. I'm basing 1 lineup off of this kind of idea that Carolina takes a huge lead and Tampa spends the rest of the game trying to catch them. But I also see things a little differently. I'm looking at the week and I'm seeing it's a short week. Carolina has only had a couple of days to rest and recover. Christian McCaffrey honestly got overplayed on Sunday. They were behind all the way into the third quarter, and he was having to keep his best players in the game. And so McCaffrey got way too many touches, and I think he's going to be exhausted. I don't think a good coach can give his star player the same number of touches with only 4 days of rest and expect him to stay healthy. Right. So I'm actually leaning. I still think Carolina wins, but I'm looking at a much closer game, I think, where Tampa Bay recovers from some of their mishaps and some of those touchdowns that got called back will stick. And I'm looking at a little bit more of a back and forth, I think, than a blowout.
So in your game flow, if this is a closer game, or even if it's not a closer game, but it's a bit more of a high-scoring game both ways, a little bit more of a shootout, who are some of the Tampa players you're going to make sure to put in your lineup?
Yeah, well, for starters, I'm definitely throwing – this isn't even a Tampa player, but I'm definitely throwing Jordan Scarlett as a flyer into –
I like this pick of yours.
Yeah, I think – here's the thing. I think by second half, even with your game flow, if Carolina is leading the game,
Jordan Scarlett is the main backup to Christian McCaffrey. Got no snaps last week.
0 snaps, so I think he's going to have super low ownership. He was their 5th round. He's a rookie. What better opportunity on a short week with a lead to let your rookie running back just 15 to 20 touches in the second half just to pound the ball away, kill some clock time, maybe even sneak into the end zone. So I'm a big fan of throwing Jordan Scarlett in at least one of my lineups.
We both have him in one lineup just in case that perfect game flow hits. It's the type of guy where he's 5,000 on FanDuel. He's the type of guy who might very well have 0 points, but if he has even 5 or 6 points,
you have to have those guys if you're going to win the GPPs. Right. You have to have the guy that's either going to win you $70,000 in a week, or the guy that's going to lose you the tournament. You know, that's kind of what. If you only play chalk plays, then play cash games. Don't play tournaments.
Right.
From Tampa Bay, I'm leaning heavy towards the tight end right now. I think
towards the whole position, or
towards the whole position. Well, towards the tight end. Pause. We were doing real good. Tampa Bay, I'm loving the tight end position actually this week. I think Carolina's weak against the tight end. They just allowed a touchdown last Sunday to that position, and Tampa clearly likes the tight end. They had 2 touchdown passes to Brate called back at the end of in their last game, and honestly, I even love O.J. Howard. I'm not really sure yet whether I like Brate or Howard better.
Howard is definitely the
starter.
The
He's
chalk
the starter. But Brate also was clearly getting looks in the red zone, right. and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that touchdown pass. So I might do 2 in my 3 lineups. One will probably have O.J. Howard and one will probably have Brate, and I'm going to see which one of those ends up hitting. But I'm leaning towards Howard right now because I think Tampa's going to try to change up their game script. I don't think they got the ball to him enough in the first game, and so I think week 2 they're going to turn around and say, let's get the ball over to our star.
I like both tight ends for Carolina and Tampa Bay for that very reason. I like Greg Olsen quite a bit this week. I think both of them underperformed quite a bit, but both got looks. I think they got 9 and 11 targets each. So they're clearly looking in that direction. The production just wasn't quite there. But
which is expected. Week 1, you expect that they're still figuring things out. You're going to have players that aren't getting enough touches, and that's exactly what the coach is looking at. The coach is looking at their first week, and they're saying, why didn't Greg Olsen see the ball more? And week 2, they're going to correct that, I think.
And I think you said this earlier off camera, but I think it's very easy you have one game from the whole year to look at and to assume it's going to go that same direction. I think a really good play is to actually play the opposite. Neither team played the way they wanted to. Mm-hmm. I think some of the players who didn't get the looks that they should have are going to certainly get the looks, a little bit of an overreaction from coaches possibly, and I think that's a good play.
Yeah, I think you have to play that. I think if you simply follow the points from last week, you're going to find yourself, you're going to have a ton of ownership because everybody's doing that.
Yep.
And B, I think you're going to find that neither team actually follows quite the same game script.
Right. Do you have any deep players, let's say 8,000 or under?
Well, I think Jordan Scarlett's
Yep.
probably my primary deeper pick there.
Yep.
I don't know. I think there's some interesting value in some of the Dare Ogunbowale. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but that's how I say his name. He seems to be the receiving back out of the backfield for Tampa, and if Tampa is actually really trailing behind Carolina in this game, I think that he's going to end up for $6,500. I think he's going to end up getting a lot of catches out of the backfield.
You could definitely see him having 5 or 6 catches.
Yeah.
We both like him. I don't know if this could be considered a deep play given that he's the starting running back, but I like Peyton Barber this week.
Oh, yeah.
Who really, I think he had 7 carries for 33 yards, 8 carries for 33 yards. Really kind of got outshone a little bit by Ronald Jones II last week, but Jones really kind of got hot early, and they rode his hot hand. And Peyton Barber is still listed as the starting quarterback. He's only 8,000 on FanDuel. I think he was 11-5 last week.
Well, and Carolina is 29th against the rush last year.
Yes, I believe so.
So I mean, this doesn't quite fit within the game flow that this is a blowout, because if it's a blowout, then I don't think they can run the ball as much with it. But
although even there,
in my
got
game
some
flow,
targets.
that's
too.
true.
He got targets, but continue.
In my game flow of it being a little bit more back and forth and closer, I think he suddenly becomes a great play, because now we're looking at a guy that they can afford to rush the ball, and I think they're going to start handing him the brick because they didn't give him enough. He got 7 touches. That's just not enough
For your starting running back.
So I think they're going to correct that this week. I think he's going to get a little bit more opportunity. And assuming that they can keep this lineup close, I see him as being a great start for the value.
I agree. Well, anything else you want to cover before the game tonight?
I think that at this point, I'm going to probably just build 3 lineups based off of 3 different game flows. One being Carolina really is putting the hammer down. One being on it being a close game. And then I'm probably just going to make 1 flyer lineup just for the sake of protecting my back, where Tampa Bay's winning. And usually when you base 3 lineups off of 3 different game flows like that,
one of them's going to hit.
One of them will hit, and it'll usually cover your losses on the 2 that didn't.
Yep.
And that's way better than just, in our experience, than just throwing out, these are the 6 players I like, and then just randomly putting them together.
Yep.
This happens to actually follow a system.
Yeah, I agree.
So best luck to y'all.
Best of luck. We will try to be back on Friday to talk about all the single game lineups for Sunday and Monday night.
And poke fun of ourselves for the things that we were just totally wrong on.
Nothing.
Yes.
Nothing. All right.
So this is DFS for the common man. We'll see you later.